I'm Carrie.
I'm Toni, and we are
Two Cranky Creatives.
This podcast is brought to you by the Graphics Gang, our online community you can find at patreon.com/graphics gang. Paid members can also watch many of the unedited podcast video recordings.
So, hi everyone. Today, Carrie and I are here with Janine Vangool of Uppercase magazine. And Janine, could you take a moment to introduce yourself for us?
Well, I've been publishing Uppercase magazine since 2009, so I've been at it for a while. And I'm trained as a graphic designer. I used to have an art gallery, which is where Uppercase started from. And I've been creative and curious my whole life.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And so, Janine, what are we cranky about today?
Well, one of the things I notice a lot with having a creative magazine where I get submissions from people is a lack of creative confidence. And it makes me cranky because it's kind of sad to think of all these really talented people who are trying to make their way in the world as a creative person, and they don't have the confidence to back themselves up. So that makes me sad.
It makes me sad. And it's also something I deeply relate to. So just yesterday, I was doing an installation because I'm part of an art show that kicks off on Friday. And so I'm there and I consciously decided I'm not going to do paintings. I'm going to do patterns, and I'm going to blow them up, and I'm going to have them huge and framed, and I'm going to do patterns. And so I installed them, and then I looked around and I saw all this fine art, and I was like, I had this split second of, oh my God, I feel like a complete fraud. You know what I'm saying? And had to talk myself out of that because there are these wonderful oil painters and all these things. But I had made this conscious decision that, people need to understand more about surface design. And so I did patterns. And so in that moment, and ironically, knowing we were going to talk to you today about this topic, I thought about that and how no, I'm not a fraud. I'm just doing something different from what everybody else is doing. And I'm in Wichita, Kansas, has very little understanding here in Wichita, Kansas, which is why I made that decision, was to bring it out, But yeah, totally experienced that just yesterday.
Yeah. And I mean, I experience it all the time. It really doesn't matter, how many accolades I get, or, if I finish a design that I'm just really, really proud of. It only takes 5 minutes of me getting on Pinterest or Instagram, especially, to beat myself up and be like, I'm not any good. And I don't know if that stems, it's hard for me to speak for other people, obviously, but I don't know if that stems from anxiety, because I do struggle with anxiety, or if it's just kind of comes with the territory of being an artist or a surface designer, or both. And it's hard to know, but I definitely, I have to talk myself out of that too. And I do that. I say, Carrie, wait a minute. Don't sit here and compare yourself to other people. But it takes effort for me to do that. And that makes me cranky.
Yeah. Well, I think it's when we start comparing ourselves to others that we can have that self-doubt. And so when I said that, I get lots of submissions, and those are the people who have overcome some of the self-doubt and they're willing to put themselves out there. And I know there's so many people who would love to see their work in Uppercase magazine or in other places, right? But they're too afraid to, make that step of putting themselves out there. And it's because you're going to be judged in some way or another, right? And yes, when I'm accepting submissions to the magazine, I only have a limited number of room. So I am going to have to say no to quite a lot of people. And so, yeah, part of submitting to something or participating in an event or applying to be, in a gallery show or any of those things, you always risk the chance of rejection. And I think if you're going to be an artist or a creative person, a graphic designer, even you're always being rejected by by clients, whether they like your design or not, or even if you get the job in the first place. You have to build that into your creative practices to like be acclimatized to the fact that not everyone's going to like what you do, and you're going to hear no, and you're not going to get to do everything that you want to do right away, because there'll be some doors you'll have to like shove open later. But that's just part of the creative life.
We just did a whole episode with Mabel Tan about rejection and navigating that. And I think that's really important. And just for our listeners, we introduce this as lack of creative confidence, and it's a term Janine hates, but I'm just going to throw it out there so people relate it to what we're talking about, which is imposter syndrome. Feeling like you are not valid in some way, shape, or form in your endeavor. And we're using the term creative confidence here. So people understand that we're relating this back to that. But one thing that came up for me while you were talking, Janine, I think, and you're in Canada, correct?
Yeah.
So I think in the United States, this is my perspective. I think there's this common misconception that confidence comes first. That I'm gonna become confident, and then I'm gonna do the thing. And I don't agree with that. At least in my experience, I have to do something, and then I start to develop confidence around it, right? And so we have this backwards mentality here in the United States about it. And I'm wondering, do you see that in Canada? They have it better than us? Like, have they figured it out?
No, I don't think it's based on where you live. I think it's based on more your personality. So I think that's a factor. Introverted versus extroverted. I think extroverted people would probably have a little bit easier time of putting themselves out there. I don't know. I'm an introvert, so I can't speak from that side
I am
of things.
too, totally.
I'm such an introvert. So yeah, I don't think it really is about where you live. Although I suppose America is known for its kind of like brute confidence or something, but Canadians are known for apologizing and being polite, but those are generalizations. So yeah, I think it's more about your internal world, how you speak with yourself, the little voice inside your head. Are you kind to yourself, or do you berate yourself? Those are sorts of things that will affect your creative confidence.
I'm curious, Janine, because we understand you as the editor of this magazine that has so much renown in our industry, and people look to Uppercase, and like the Surface Design Guide is coming out, and you just announced the call for that, and but you yourself are a pattern designer, correct? And also, you said trained as a graphic artist. So you've developed this way of thinking about creative confidence. So what was that journey for you? Like, how did that come about?
Sure. Well, I've always loved paper and books. And as a kid, I did lots of drawing and watercolors and loved art classes. And I was yearbook editor in high school. And so I've always, that's been my area of interest. Is basically, it took me a while to understand that it was graphic design that I liked, that I liked curating content and bringing text and images together and making something of it. So it wasn't until grade 11 or 12 that I figured out that was my area that I really liked, was graphic design. And so I was also like a nerd and really good at school and got really great grades. And there was a lot of pressure from, the guidance counselors and teachers and my family that I should, do something with that, right? Like that I should, become an engineer or something, or I was like vaguely interested in neurology or something. But my core being was I wanted to be a graphic designer. And so my first real act of defiance against my parents was when it was time to apply for college. They just assumed that I would apply to universities and such because that's what everyone thought I should do, but I didn't. And instead, I only applied to two art colleges.
Nice.
So that was my first foray into creative confidence, and knowing that, yeah, this is what I want to do. And I know that this is my path, and I'm going to kind of defy a few people of authority, when you're 17. And I'm going to pursue the graphic arts, as it was called at the time. So that was the first foray, I think, into understanding that I needed to stand up for the creative things that I wanted to do, and to justify that, or show that it's a worthy pursuit to be a creative person, that it wasn't like it was a demotion or something. It was just, this is where I was going to go with it. And then from there, I think I did the 4-year, it was a diploma program in communication arts. And upon graduation, I basically had shown my portfolio to a few places, and I got a job, which was like terrible. It was a terrible job.
Aren't the first jobs always terrible?
Well, I had a chauvinist boss.
Oh,
and
no.
I've told this story before, but he wasn't, I didn't respect him because he wasn't treating me well. And I stood up for myself.
Yay!
And good for you.
He apologized and gave me a raise.
Good for
Oh
you.
my God. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then he, would fall back in his old ways, and I would put him back in his place, and I got another raise. So I was there for 9 months, and I doubled my salary.
Good for you.
But it was miserable. And even though it was like a graphic design related job, it wasn't what I wanted to be doing. So I used my portfolio that I developed while in school, where we had done some like fictional what if kinds of projects. And I imagined, well, what if I designed something for the Calgary International Children's Festival? And I came up with like the whole campaign and the illustrations. I even drew a font, and I had the whole thing, and it looked finished. It was like, here, I did the whole thing. So I showed that to the people at that festival, and they said, yeah, that looks awesome. We'll hire you.
Awesome.
So I used that to ditch the job that I hated and just decide I'm going to freelance. I'm going to be a freelance designer. That's what I want to do. I was really young at the time, like only like 22, I guess, but there were people who had faith in me, which is incredible and amazing in retrospect. But there were a few people who, yeah, you can do it. You've done it here. So now we'll just make it in practicality. And I met some really great people on that first job, and was able to start a freelance design career.
Nice.
So that was like another really early lesson in having creative confidence and understanding the circumstances of a job that was unpleasant, but to realize I did have talent and I could go find the right people that I wanted to work with.
That
Very
is
cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's definitely, it sounds like that was a big act of courage for you, because you kind of hit on something that I know comes up pretty regularly, which I guess is where a lot of this comes from, when it's not our personalities, is art being devalued in our society, or art not necessarily being devalued, but invisible maybe, because it's everywhere. You don't realize how many things have a graphic designer's hand in them. So because of that, people take it for granted. And then, of course, in turn, it ends up being undervalued, I guess I should say. So, but I am really amazed, and that is awesome. I'm awe-inspired that you were like, no, this is a worthwhile pursuit at such a young age, to have that kind of insight, and then to stand up for yourself and say, I love that you put your boss in his place and then got a raise, got rewarded for it. That's amazing. Yeah.
Well, in retrospect, I'm very grateful for those experiences and that they happened earlier, because I would have just stayed it was a decent paying job and it was fine. And some of the projects were interesting, and they were like fairly big projects that would have been recognized within the city at least. But I'm glad that I had the courage to stand up to those, situations, and to try to do my own freelance work. Because, being an introvert, that was like, it was a really big thing to do that. But it was good that I did it when I was so early to things, because I didn't get kind of stuck into kind of a cushy situation where it would have been harder to work myself out of it. So yeah, I'm glad that happened when it did.
Well, I think that ethos, at least to the outsider, has kind of like followed you through your career. Because even with Uppercase magazine, like one of the things that I respect, and Carrie and I have chatted offline about, like the lack of transparency and like design contests or things like that. So like with your Surface guide, the fact that there's a fee to enter it, but like you're so transparent about like what that is paying for and what that is going to. And like, from the moment I heard about Uppercase, like, I have several of your encyclopedia volumes, and just like, I think even on the pre-order page, it was like, your pre-order is paying for this, 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 and this, you know what I'm saying? So it was like you can feel good about supporting, Uppercase and all of its endeavors and what's happening with that. So like, just like that confidence that you developed so young, and your willingness to strike out on your own, you do things kind of like your own way. And that's something that I've always respected in what I've seen.
Thank you. I think it's, I have a stubborn streak. Which,
that's good.
Really, really stubborn. I want to do it my way. But when it comes to, Uppercase and my business and communicating with my readers, I like to just share the thought process that I go through before I, create something, or while I'm creating something, because first of all, it helps me to articulate what it is I'm trying to do and why. And here's all the costs associated with making a book. This is why I need to pre-order it for like 2 years. Like, this is why it takes so long. And so not only does that give me kind of like a roadmap, or a container for where I can put my ideas, it also is hopefully informative to the readers, because they can apply that sort of stuff to their own creative projects. But then they also feel like they're more a part of it, because they understand why being part of it in their earlier days is so helpful to the project. So yeah, that's something I've learned over the years too, is that just share it. It's easier to share it than to keep things hidden away for no reason.
That makes a lot of sense.
I have a question actually too, because this is something that I think about on a relatively regular basis. So I trained, I got a graphic design degree. So I went to school for graphic design. I actually came at it at a later age. I did web design for a while, and I was like, wait a minute, I don't want to write code anymore. This is boring. But one thing that I feel like has really helped me develop creative confidence and be able to accept, if I'm frustrated or I'm feeling kind of down on myself, is the experience of going through school and having critiques, or just working as a freelance graphic designer for someone else, where, unless they're giving you completely just destructive criticism, and I hate it and I don't know why, usually you can kind of squeeze the information out of somebody. Well, if you don't like it, what don't you like about it? It's almost your ability to remove yourself a little bit from the art enough so that you can not take everything personally and say, well, this is just, a solution to a problem, and there may be another solution, and this is my audience, and this is, so I don't know if you feel like either your school or, just working as a freelancer has helped build that like resilience muscle at all. I don't know. I feel like it has for me.
Yeah. Looking back at college, we'd have crits where you'd have to present your work, and it'd be with the whole group, and the teacher would be there, even be the first to like pounce on you. And that was their job, was to see if you could take it.
Yeah.
Right. So that was good. Just to toughen up, and for some public speaking, for me anyway, I needed to do that. And then being a graphic designer, working with clients, and realizing that when you're presenting work, your ideas, the more confidence you present things with, the easier it is for everybody. Because if you're presenting multiple ideas, but you're waffling against all of them, it doesn't help the client at all.
And they can see that too.
Yeah. So that was also, I did freelance design for about 12 years. And so that ability to just yeah, this is the best idea. Like, I've done all this other work here, but here I'm going to give you, this is the best idea for all of the reasons that I'm about to tell you. This is why we should do this. And having the confidence to present it that way, total time saver to do it that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's true.
That's smart.
Understanding your design decisions and being able to communicate them is really important in client work. One thing I will say, so I did not go to art school in any capacity, but I did get a master's in creative writing. And so I also sat through workshops and critiques and things like that on my writing. And I will say that you need to, I would advise people to kind of like hold on your shoulder the grain of salt for who's speaking to you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And also that just because someone is in a position of authority doesn't mean they know what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because where I'm going with this is I had one professor in a program who honestly just I had by the time I was in this program, I had published 7 romance novels and I had hit the top 30 on Amazon, and he had no respect for the fact that I had written romance novels, and he just trashed me again and again and again. It didn't matter what I wrote, how I wrote it, what I said. And in the end, I just had to go, you know what? He's not valid to me. He's just not valid. Like I'm just ignoring him from here on out.
Yeah.
You know? But then, you know, in moving forward in the program, you know, I had great workshops and wonderful, you know, teachers who are willing to like work with my writing. And I was writing literary fiction. I wasn't writing romance novels in these, but you know, so again, there too. And like sometimes even with clients just not going to like what you put. Some clients just are not going to like what you put in front of them, no matter how much you explain what you did and why. And that's why I have kill language in every contract.
Yeah. It's important
I can fire
to
my
have
clients
that.
too.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And sometimes it's just not the right fit. And knowing the difference between maybe you're not the right fit or I'm not the right fit for whether it's a client or a company that I'm pitching for art licensing, you know, not everyone is going to love, you know, my style. And that doesn't mean that my art is invalid. It just means that they want something different than what I am delivering. And that's actually a good thing because I don't want to I've spent enough of my life trying to squeeze myself into, you know, I'm a round peg. What is that? Into a square hole or whatever. Yeah. But I don't want to do that anymore. So, and you know, I will say too that I am an extrovert. I don't know if you guys could tell, but just because I'm an extrovert does not mean I automatically have a lot of confidence. It just means that I'm more impulsive than most people. So I just don't sit there and overthink everything. I just blurt stuff out. So,
you know,
yeah.
It was just a couple years ago, I learned that anxiety can manifest itself in a belief that someone does not like you. Like when people think about anxiety, at least the way I thought about anxiety, I didn't think about it manifesting like that. Like, you know, I thought more about like panic attacks and, you know, stuff like that. And when I read that, I talked to my therapist about that. And I was like, I think that's how my anxiety manifests. Cause like I am quick to go, they don't like me, this, you know what I'm saying? And so I think that, you know, when it comes to creative confidence, there, you know, and Carrie, I've said this before, this is something I always say, the act of creativity in any form is an act of courage. But if you're going to put it out there, I think it's very important to be self-aware enough to understand why you're doing it. Like, why are you creating this thing? And what does it mean to you before anything else? Because if you don't understand that, then it's hard to build resilience in those moments where someone comes at you and they're just voicing their opinion because it's subjective. It is completely subjective on whether it's good or not, you know?
Yeah. So
I think it depends on the person who's doing the creating as well. If the work they're creating is coming from themselves and it's self-directed and the ideas and the aesthetic and everything are things that they want to express, that hopefully that is coming from that person has some creative confidence. I think when you start to try and like, I want to be like, you know, that person over there, and you start to kind of change what you do and who you are in order to look like something else, then I think your creative confidence can be more easily shattered because you already realize that you have a veneer, and that is a bit more of that imposter syndrome thing where you're just trying to be like something else rather than just like, what is it that you want to do? What is it you want to create?
Right.
Yeah. It's kind of like that old phrase, like, do what you love and the money will follow.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, it's pretty true. I know that I fall into the trap sometimes of like, I want to draw cat butts or like really silly cats or whatever. But I know that, I guess it's not a trap, but I mean, I know that not all my licensing partners are going to like that. So I'm not really going, okay, I'm going to emulate someone else's style, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to, create some stuff that I know this licensing partner is going to want if I'm going to answer this art call and get anything licensed. But it's like finding a balance of where am I not losing my voice or, I'm not trying to be what they want me to be, but I'm trying to create what they want me to create with the language that I know how to use.
Well,
And
that's
it's tricky.
That's strategy. So that's confidence to do it that way. Like,
right.
To understand that's the audience and this is what the sort of thing they want. And this is how I can do it in the way that's authentic to me. So I think that's a strategic way of looking at it. So that's confidence.
I agree with that completely. I think that's also where your artistic voice comes into play as well. I mean, Carrie, I know a you drawing as soon as it's on the screen. I don't even have to see who's like, if it flashes, I'm like, that's Carrie. Right. But part of that is your artistic voice. Part of that is your drawing style. And I think that as I think that creative confidence is where you end up developing that unique artistic voice. Like, I mean, like florals are evergreen, right? Like we hear that in the industry all the time. Florals are evergreen. You should always have florals in your portfolio. And I do, but they're drawn the way that I draw them. Like this is just the way I do florals, and they're a little wonky, and I get that, and it's fine, but and I do want to acknowledge that as you're learning, you're going to emulate the teachers and the tutorials, and that is a natural part of learning, but at some point, your confidence as you're drawing and learning those styles will evolve. Like that is the natural rhythm of things, right? Because you're learning, when you learn, you emulate a style, but then you're going to go and you're going to have more teaching, you're going to have more learning, and ultimately all of that's going to come together, and that's going to be who you are as an artist, right? And I think that, doesn't get enough, I don't know, maybe like discussion or something like that. Like just say, draw a million things and you'll get your style. But no, it's like, learn, it's okay. Like, don't be afraid to I took immersion. I copied Bonnie's style all through the course, you know what I'm saying? Cause I'm like, I'm going to do it the way Bonnie's doing it while I'm taking this course. But now I've chosen the things that resonated with me from what I learned from Bonnie, and I've incorporated them into who I am as an artist, and that ultimately I think is important, right?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know, Janine, I just cannot get over, I spoke with you for the graphics gang. Mm-hmm. I don't know, was it a year ago? But you at the time when we spoke, I swear, imposter syndrome was like the buzzword of the moment. And I was just like, well, what do you think about imposter syndrome? I used to have like some questions that I would ask, what's the one thing you would go back and tell yourself, which I still love that question. But, one of my questions was, do you struggle with imposter syndrome? And nobody had said to me until you, well, I think that's really the way that language we use, if we even use that term in referring to ourselves, it's kind of like a negative self-fulfilling prophecy. And then we're just putting ourselves in this cycle of negativity. Mm-hmm. And I mean, honestly, that I still think about what you said, like what is it, like a year later? Like it's really, It's true. And, I noticed that imposter syndrome was like a buzzword that all the teachers were using for a while, and people aren't using it as much anymore. And I'm glad, because it really can be kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Not prophecy, that sounds a little too mystical, but Yeah,
well, it's a silly term. Like if you break it down, imposter syndrome. like syndrome, even to say I have a syndrome. Like, what is
Restless
that?
leg syndrome.
Like, it makes no sense, really. Like, are you imposter? Like, are you, I remember, like, are you actually an imposter? Like, are you pretending to be someone else and you're like, doing a crime or something? Like, then you're not imposter. But if you're creating something and you're doing the work and you are presenting yourself in a situation that you might be unfamiliar with, that does not mean you're an imposter there. It means you're new to the party. It means that you're bringing yourself into a place of the unknown, and that's fine. It doesn't mean you're not supposed to be there. You're not an imposter. You're just, being yourself in a new situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gives you permission by not using that language to like cut
Mhm.
yourself a break. I know that as women, I mean, I second guess what I do as a woman a lot. And I don't know if that's just the culture we live or the society we live in. But I do I'm sorry, apologize for stuff. And it's taken, training for me to stop doing that. And I think that that's where the fear that for me has come from in the past. But, a lot of it is just overthinking stuff. And I'm like, I'm just going to stop thinking. Thinking is overrated.
Well, I think Marie Forleo is like been one of my mentors over the years, and her B School program. And she has a saying, clarity comes from action, not thought. So it's by doing something that you fully understand what it is that you're doing, and you have more confidence when you're actually taking action rather than having it all live within your mind, where you might be like catastrophizing all of the bad outcomes that could happen, rather than just going forward and giving it your all and seeing what the results might be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great quote. I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. And it reminds us to, I have bipolar disorder, and I used to go to, support groups with the Depression Bipolar Support Alliance. But there's like a phrase they use in that community that's get out of your bed and out of your head. So, because it's like, it's true. I mean, if you just sit there and spiral and scroll Instagram or whatever, I mean, get up and do something, like go touch some paints, or, go for a walk, or, especially one thing that I do love about Uppercase and what you do, Janine, is you work very tangibly. I've seen a lot of like cut paper. You're very into like physical, tangible, craft and art. And I think that's really nice, because I'm a digital artist, but there is something really freeing about getting off the computer and just really physically moving my hands around to create something. And I think that can create a lot of confidence, even if I'm not super happy with the result. I'm like, yeah, but I still made that physical thing. It's not this abstract file on my computer.
Yeah. And so my analog medium is slow stitching and bookmaking, but I had to find a medium that forced me to let go of perfectionism. Like, you just can't be perfect with it, right? Because I think that, like, as we're talking about creative confidence, I think that, touching for a second on some of the things that culturally can get in our way, right? And like, I know for me, as a survivor of domestic violence, I lived my life in a way that if I was perfect, I was safe. And like, I think a lot of people can relate to that, but in whatever way your perfectionism came about, what I hear a lot with artists is like, I'm a perfectionist, right? And so, but that perfectionism can lead to, can undermine your confidence, because I mean, honestly, even as I installed those, there were 4 patterns that I installed them yesterday. I was looking at the fact that the frame didn't come out the way that I wanted it, right? And like there were these these little things, and I was like, I don't have time to get it fixed, right? So I have to install it like this. And my artist friend came up because she was installing hers, and she was like, "Oh, this looks so great." And I'm like, "But look at," and I'm immediately pointing out what's wrong with the frames. And she was like, "Toni, shush." I wouldn't have noticed if you hadn't said that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And, so like, where am I going with this? Like being aware of your tendencies, right? And what can get in your own way of building your creative confidence. So like with like Carrie and I talked about this before, like when I first started drawing, I would I couldn't even finish anything because I was just deleting it. I was like, this is not good. I'm deleting it. This doesn't look like what was in my head. I'm deleting it. And so one day I finally was like, and I don't even know where it came from, but I was like, okay, I'm not allowed to delete anything for 30 days. Right. And then like half the time more than half the time I come back to it's not as bad as I thought it was, and I just had to get away from it for a little while.
Yeah.
And I just, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I think like I'm a graphic designer because I was always not satisfied with my art, right? Like I used to be a long time ago. I could draw anything and reproduce it, like make it look realistic, but I always wanted to have expression and be abstract and like loud and like colorful and all these things that I didn't know how to do at the time. And so what I liked about graphic design was that I could organize things, and I could, if I'm not the illustrator for the job, I could find the illustrator that would be perfect for the job, right? So that I could control more of the elements that I couldn't produce myself. And what I love about Uppercase magazine is I can curate all this amazing, beautiful artwork that I could never do myself, but I can like work with it and live with it for a bit through the magazine. So that I'm fully aware that's why I love publishing and why I'm a graphic designer. But I would like to do more of the hands-on art and to push myself in my own creative expressions. So I've done a lot of like sewing and that sort of thing, but I want to get my hands dirty. So I bought some paints and I got a couple canvases, and I'm just waiting for some time, but I'm going to do something there. And I fully expect it's going to be imperfect. I don't even know what I want to make, but I think the point will be just to put paint on canvas and smush it around.
Yeah.
Nice colors. Like that's what I want to do. I want to do the antithesis of all of the like organization and all of the kind of perfect curating that I do with the magazine. I just want to like do something that's completely untethered to that. So that's what I'm going to do. I have no confidence that whatever I produce has to, like, it's not going to be, I already know it. It's not going to be anything in particular. What I'm aiming for is the experience of making it.
That's beautiful.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love that.
Very
I love
cool.
that.
Yeah. And you know what? If it's perfect, it doesn't look hand done. So if I want to create hand done art, or art that looks hand done, because that's what my licensing clients want, well, it shouldn't be perfect. So I have to say that to myself, because I come from a graphic design background too. And I'm like, oh no, wait, what? Just one pixel to the left.
Yeah.
And I'm like, stop.
So I have to say one of the best compliments I got, because my hands, I have an inherent shake to my hands. And so when I draw, that comes through. And I had a friend looking at a pattern that I had drawn, and she said, I love the fact that I can see the shake. And I'm like, oh.
That's awesome though. I mean, that's it came from you, and it's real. You really made it. It's not made, I mean, in the age of AI, it's like machines can do all kinds of stuff, but they can't be us.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
So I guess what advice would we give people to help build their creative confidence?
I mean, if I had to say anything, I'd say stop thinking. Just stop. Tell your brain to turn off. Like, go do something else and stop thinking about it. Just do it.
Just do it.
That's not my slogan. Sorry, Nike.
We're not claiming it. It's okay.
Well, I was looking at an email that I sent out to my readers a month or two ago, October, I guess, because I was looking for submissions for the magazine for something, and I wasn't getting as many as I thought I would. And I just thought, I'm going to send a message to people and say, just submit. Like, if you wanted to be in the magazine, here's your opportunity. So what I wrote there was, whatever labels you're telling yourself as reasons why you can't submit or do something, right? Just throw out the labels. And that was funny because then I got a whole bunch of emails from people saying, but what if, but I do this and can I enter anyway? And like, it was really hilarious because it triggered a nerve with people that they wanted to submit. And I said, just don't have any labels, just whatever reason you have for why you can't submit, just ignore that and submit anyway. But yet again, people still needed me to say, yeah, you can submit. Of course you can. Like, that's fine, submit your work. So it was funny that I was asking people to be brave and submit, but then I still got a lot of people wondering if they were right for this or not. And when I was saying, yeah, everyone is, right? So that was an interesting moment of understanding, I think, some of the confidence issues that people might have when it comes to sharing their work in a public way. So I think my advice there is, if someone's inviting you to submit and share their work and they're saying, I'd love to see what it is that you do, and just share it. That's an open invitation, and it's not an invitation that's going to result in any sort of judgment. It's just like, I'd love to see what you're doing. And that's true for anybody submitting anything to Uppercase. I think it might not be like exactly the right fit for this particular, issue or theme that I'm working on, but it could be perfect for the next one. And so I think if you just share your work and you have the confidence to put yourself out there in a little way, then it will have rewards for you. That's
awesome.
That's my advice. Yeah.
I love it. And I think we should let that particular conversation end right there, because that's perfect. So Janine, that means I get to ask you a couple hot seat questions.
Okay.
Let me pull them up real quick. They're simple and hopefully fun. Mm-hmm. So first one I love to find out about people is, what is your favorite color and why?
My favorite color changes because I give myself permission to have different favorite colors. So, because why not? I love color overall. Like you can tell from my magazines and my books that I love color. So right now, I currently really love intense pink, magenta pink. And that's my favorite color in the moment. And I have some geraniums that I rescued from the fall winter and brought them into my studio here, and I thought they were going to die, and they're blooming now, and they're that beautiful hot pink. So that's why it's my favorite color.
Lovely. I love that. Dogs or cats?
Well, dogs, because I have a little corgi, and his name is Rupert.
Corgi.
Yeah, has to be.
I love his name. Oh, you're allergic to cats.
Well, that helps. I love corgis. They're so cute.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what is your go-to drawing software?
I don't go to software to draw.
Okay.
I love that.
That's a valid answer. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you digitize though, what are you using?
I have a scanner. Mm-hmm. But I also like taking things like pictures with my phone, and I bring them in and just use that. Depends on what I'm doing. Nice. But mostly my drawings and sketches are not things that I need to have in a digital realm, because they might be just like a quick, like a design sketch or ideas and stuff. So, because I'm not actually creating art that shows up in my publications typically.
That makes sense. Very cool. Favorite movie, if you have one?
Pride and Prejudice, the one with Keira Knightley.
With Keira Knightley, okay. All right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. And then the last question is, do you have a go-to song that you play, like if you need a pick-me-up?
I don't have a particular favorite song. I've been immersing myself more into piano in the past number of years. Like I used to play as a kid, but now I'm like revisiting it and just enjoying it. So anything Chopin, I'm really enjoying that right now.
Oh, nice. Very cool. So classy.
Yeah.
All right. So Janine, for all of our listeners, can you just tell us how to find you, how they can connect with you, Uppercase, the magazine, all the good things?
Sure. Well, it's uppercasemagazine.com, which is the website, and Uppercase Mag on Instagram. And on my website, there's a tab that says submissions and community. You can just find out about it there, about how you can share your work. And as you mentioned, very generously, thank you. I have an open call right now for the 6th edition of the Uppercase Surface Pattern Design Guide, which happens every couple of years now. And it's all about surface pattern design industry. And I feature 100 portfolios of people who have submitted their work. So that's my next big project is curating that. And if people are out there who want to, stick their toe in surface pattern design, I'd love to see what you're doing.
You heard it here, everybody. Just submit. She said it. Just submit.
Yeah.
She wants to see it.
As you mentioned, there is a submission fee, and part of that goes towards paying the cover artist, and there'll be some printed papers that we do, so that will go to the artist and to the production costs, and then as well, if you can't afford the fee, just email me and I'll send you a discount code.
Awesome. Cool. That's excellent.
Yeah.
All right.
Very
Well, I think
generous
that's
of
a
you.
wrap. Yay.
Thank you so much, Janine. It
Thank
was
you
great
both. That
to
was
talk to
fun.
you.
If you're loving this podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And while you're at it, we'd love it if you could rate and review us. Your support helps more people discover the show, and it keeps us going strong. Thanks for tuning in. It means a lot. I'm Toni.
And I'm Carrie. It's okay to be cranky.
In the meantime, keep creating.